Whether would you like to call roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Saxon?
Here.
Vice Chair Lovell?
Here.
Director Cutchin?
Here.
Director Hensley? Director Keating?
Here.
Director Johnston?
Here.
Director Plummer?
Here.
Director Settlemeyer? Director Stout?
Here.
We do have a.
Great, thank you. Are there any adjustments to today's agenda? Anyone? Okay, seeing none. We'll now go to public participation. The time limit is 3 minutes per speaker. So I'd like to invite any member of the public that would like to present comments on today's agenda. So is there anyone online?
No, Chair, there's no.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience? Okay, there's no comments on today's agenda. Are there any comments by the public on a topic that is not included on today's agenda?
Yes, Chair. Jim Daniels would like to speak.
I'll just stand if that's all right. So this will be the last meeting I attend, and I thought as the final one, I want to take the opportunity to praise LRAPA staff. I've worked at Roseboro for 38 years, and I've managed environmental compliance there for 33. So when I started, it was just an ACDP at Springfield plant, currently managing Title V at Springfield, ACDP at Vaughan. And I've had experience with all the regulatory agencies, EPA, DEQ, Water Resource Department, OHA, OSHA, and LRAPA in the last few years has by far had the most skilled, knowledgeable staff who apply the rules fairly and unbiased. And I just want to make sure you are all aware of that. There's been a lot of turnover the last few years, but the old hands that I had direct experience with were Max, encyclopedic knowledge, Colleen up there too, Lance, of course. Ashley is new, but did an excellent job writing my permit. It's a very complicated permit. Heather has been a gem with the committee. Mandy, haven't had as much contact, but she's been very fair. Robbie, Matt, of course, and Travis. I've had experience with, I think, 7, 8 directors in the past 30 years, and Travis is a rising star. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Well, thank you for those comments. And I'd like to express on behalf of the board our appreciation for your many years of service on the Citizens Advisory Committee, and wish you best in retirement. And
Thank you.
Thanks again for all the work that you've done to help the agency be a better agency. Thank you.
Mr. Jim, come on.
Okay, were there any members of the public that?
No, Chair.
Okay. Okay, are there any comments from board members? Okay.
One, maybe a suggestion for a future agenda item, if I may quickly. I believe the City of Eugene is considering some amendments to the Public Health Standards Code. And I think in a way that potentially could impact LRAPA. So I would be curious at a future meeting to understand staff's perspective, concern, support, just so I can be better informed. It seems like there's a lot of strong feelings about it in the community. So I think it would behoove me and probably others as well, just to be informed. So no need to discuss anything today, but I'll leave it in the hands of our director, or excuse me, our chair and vice chair to determine if it might fit a 2026 agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay, we are now going to move to the executive session. And the session is to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer, in this case, our executive director, and who does not request an open hearing. And so he has not requested one. LRAPA will now meet an executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2I for the purposes of reviewing and evaluating the employment-related performance of its Chief Executive Officer, the Director of LRAPA. Representatives of the news media and designated staff may attend the executive session. All members of the audience are asked to leave. If your news media are present, please announce yourself and the news media that you're representing.
Meeting and then.
No one in the audience. So with that, there will be no final decisions made in the executive session. So I'd like now to go into executive session.
I'm going to go ahead and pause the meeting. And for those online, I'm going to remove you, or if you would remove yourselves and log back on about 1.
The agenda item based
Let's
on
go ahead and start up again. And we're now back into regular session.
key.
So next item on the agenda is contract amendment, board authorization for negotiation. Travis's contract is up for renewal in May. And so Travis and I had some conversations about schedule and all this. And we thought I'd like to present to the board the idea of starting that contract amendment soon and trying to get most of that squared away by January. One of the reasons, well, a couple of reasons. One is if there's going to be any adjustments to compensation, we need to have that done early as part of the budgeting process. So not that it's a big number in the total budget, but it is something that we need to go ahead and account for. The other thing is looking at the board's workload. First half of next year, it's probably going to be a lot. I mean, there's not only the budget, but there's going to be some significant changes to LRAPA's regulations that will require some board discussion as well as hearings. So we thought that between now and January, it's going to be a little bit of a slow time for the board. We don't meet in December, and so that might present an opportunity to enter into those discussions about contract amendment and propose that to the board in January. In the past, the board has delegated to the chair, in some cases chair and vice chair, the authority to go ahead and discuss contract amendments with the director and come to at least a preliminary consensus on that and present that to the board for their review and approval. So what I'm suggesting is that the board authorize the chair to enter into discussions with Travis on amending his contract, which is up for renewal in May. So throw that out.
All that makes sense to me. I would just recommend giving yourself enough time, maybe by the end of January. That way you can hit the mark, but also not feel the,
Sure.
just a recommendation. I don't know if it has to be cemented, if you need a vote from this body or just a head nod. But I have no heartburn. I've supported similar actions in the past.
Just one observation, and it came up during the evaluation process. I asked the staff some questions pretty much about the pay table for the executive director. And if I didn't include you, I should have included you in this.
I think you did send it to me.
So and Rochelle responded too as well. But the only thing I observe is that at the city of Oak Ridge, the city administrator is on the pay table it has steps. And I noticed when I asked Christina, and I'm sorry for putting you in that difficult position, Christina, but for the pay table and started getting into the discussion, they mentioned that the executive director is not on the pay table. It's all negotiated against their contract, but our CA is contract, he's still on the pay scale. And to me, I think there's some advantages to that because it kind of bounds the conversation. And it gives you the expectation that, the step, and if they perceive a valid evaluation, a good evaluation, then the expectation is that they would go to the next step until they get to the end of the table, like any other organization. But not to say that you have to hold yourself to one step. If they're really kicking it, then you go to the 2 steps. But to me, it's something the board, I think, should consider. Do we sort of find a way to include the executive director on a pay table?
Yeah, and maybe to directly respond to that, I think that having kind of transparency in how pay is set for an executive director can be really helpful for staff morale as well. Something that we advocate for a lot in the labor world is pay equity, and like having the lowest paid employee and the highest paid employee in an organization have some kind of required bound, right? So that a lowest paid employee couldn't make less than X percentage of the highest paid employee. And I think that, as we're thinking about staff morale and maintaining this upward trajectory, I think that'd be something worth talking about, or at least having some kind of policy on the books so staff could understand how the executive director's salary was set rather than just like independent negotiation.
So it could be part of the contract negotiation.
Yes, the effort, you could maybe pull in a couple, Christina or somebody to, how would that look?
Mhm.
And then vet it with the board, like someone like Dylan that really knows, some of it.
Yeah.
Not that you're in the, not that you mean the subcommittee, but you could just,
I'm happy to be whatever, if you'll have me.
Well, how does Eugene or the county, how does that work? Since, you're.
Similar to what Brian's describing, there are steps for everything. And we have a complicated process and a whole committee that does that with lawyers and negotiators and all that. And to try to explain it in 3 sentences would be a large amount.
But in the contract, you do have a document in there that gives it, percent step
Right.
increases. things
yeah, like
that.
when we brought on our current one, you will start at step, city administrator, step 2 or whatever it
Mhm.
was. And that's where that's the starting point, and then you work from there.
And that's not in addition to any CPI or cost of living increase that's done across the.
Yeah, that's merit,
That's exempt salary schedule.
yes.
Christina had a comment.
I just wanted to say hi, everybody, first of all, but if you guys do decide you want to create a salary line with steps for the executive director, the person you'd work with on that is Rochelle. She is familiar with how to set that up and has been working through some of the changes we've needed to make on our other lines for the salary schedule. So she has everything you need to be successful at her desk. So just wanted to let you know who to go to when you're ready to start talking about that.
Chair, just a comment is I do like the general direction of sort of what are the bounds for the executive director. I remember my first job out of college, I was at the University of Minnesota, and where your birthday was private information, but your salary was not. Versus private sector where your birthday, y'all know when the birthday is, but your salary is private. So I just think it's an interesting flip between those two. And I'd be very open to a kind of a formula.
Yeah, me too. It's a little bit foreign for me, private sector. There were no cost of living increases. It was all merit-based pay. So, but that's fine. It's a different world. Anyway, just to kind of circle back, how would you like to proceed? Is the board okay with the chair proceeding? And we can give if we don't do it finished by January, we can, give some interim reports as to where we are progress-wise. I don't expect it to be too difficult. But,
You want the vice chair to help you?
sure.
Oh, thanks, Brian. I was thinking, geez, Howard and Rochelle, go. Yeah, okay, whatever. If you need help, sure. I'm happy to help.
And do you want to combine that with this?
Yes. Yeah.
At least see what it looks like.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. Everybody cool with that?
Good.
All right.
We don't need a motion, that's sufficient.
I think it's sufficient.
Consensus, yeah.
I think it's sufficient. Okay, thank you. We'll start making some progress on that. Okay, mundane thing here, approval of the minutes from the October meeting.
Chair, I'd like to move approval of the minutes from October 9th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments, changes? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of the October meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you, Jared. Is Kelly here?
Yes.
Hi, Kelly.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. So at our recent Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, we welcomed Joe Rogers, who is the public health representative from Lane County. And then we did a final review of the orientation packet that we have put together for the Citizens Advisory Committee, which includes, just some really good information, not only about the application and renewal. We've got some abbreviated Robert's rules, and we kind of went through and reviewed the bylaws. There was discussion about potentially inviting somebody from like construction, who, on like the going green, trying to be energy efficient, and would there be some opportunity, and whether or not we could do that under the current bylaws because of the positions that are outlined, or whether that could be under, general public. And so there was somebody, I think that somebody had in mind, so we might, we have room for more people and more positions. So that might be something that we're looking at in the future. That's about it.
Any questions?
Just a suggestion to add to that. Yes, and I think some representation from the labor sector. The steamers, pipe fitters come to mind, or the electrical workers. How transitioning to a clean energy or green economy affects their sector and the opportunities with labor and the for-profit business world as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think it would also, I support it because I think it would help also in recent glitch that we had in Oak Ridge about asbestos abatement. And I think someone from the construction industry could really provide some insights there.
Yeah, and maybe help bridge the communication and their outreach. So, perfect.
I might just suggest like the sheet metal workers, specifically SMART. They've been really involved in HVAC installations. So beyond UA and IBEW, they could be a good candidate for labor. And then the heat pump stores, like a local business in Springfield, I believe. They're doing statewide installations. They're one of the leading kind of technicians on clean heat, weatherization, retrofits.
It's a great list. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to give thanks to Jim for his years of service. His last meeting sadly was overshadowed by the centerpiece of the elephant in the room, which is the executive director's evaluation today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly say thank you to Jim, but is there anything that the Citizens Advisory Committee does for members when they cycle off, thanking them for their service, or anything you need from this body to help amplify those dedicated public servants and our way of saying thank you to folks like Jim?
Well, during the ribbon cutting, Travis, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so I appreciate Jim as well, and part of that wanting to express that appreciation and longtime volunteerism to our organization in the CAC as we put together a plaque. And then last May during our ribbon cutting, there was an aside where we brought him in and we made him be embarrassed in front of everybody. So we gave him a plaque. So yeah.
Good.
No purple air monitor as a gift?
No, not that. No, because there's a price value of what we can do from an ethic perspective, but the thought was there. So yeah.
Well, Jim has been the chair for as long as, I've been on the CAC for going on a little over 7 years. And so I'm not sure, how long a chair.
It was like 14.
I think he was there for about 14 years. So I'm not sure if there's a standard procedure, but certainly.
There's a goal there for you.
Right, exactly.
Get a room named after you at 15.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kelly.
Good job, Kelly.
Okay, on to financial report.
Yeah, Howard, before kick it over to Christina, I just want to share with the board some transparency, the fact that Christina is not in the room. Instead, she's in her office, still in the building. But in recognizing that we are kind of midstream an audit, and I agree, and Christina does as well, is we want to really have an on-time complete audit. And so part of the recognition was a board meeting is awesome, but a board meeting is a lot of sitting when time could be focused on doing. And so Christina's been doing some doing in her office and is ready to share the financial report.
So
I just wanted-
everybody dismissed, we'll move to Christina's office.
Yes.
Make her feel welcome.
So I just wanted to provide that context to everybody. So
Go ahead, Christina.
Thank you. I was hoping that stepping out by leaving the Zoom meeting or Teams meeting would be less disruptive than having to grab my things and walk out of the room when I was finished. So that was kind of the goal of why I'm in my office right now. But if you guys will turn to the financial update as of September 31st, 2025, it's on page 12, I believe. I always highlight the categories where we are close to the target. As of September 31st, we are 25% of the way through the fiscal year. And so there are two line items that are pretty close to that, but neither one is over. They're both related to personnel services. If you remember a couple of months ago, I believe we were actually either at the target number or a little bit over, but I reassured everyone that it would start coming down a little bit through the months, and it is. So the general fund personnel services has a footnote down at the bottom telling us that we're currently at 93% of the targeted amount of 25% for September, and we fully expect it will remain under budget for the year. And then the special revenue fund or Title V fund personnel services line is at 85% of the targeted amount. And that one also is expected to remain under budget for the year. All the rest are in the green, which means we're under budget and not even close to worrying about going over. Does anyone have any questions about specific line items or things you'd like to ask about the financial update? Sometimes crickets are, oh wait, I can't hear. I couldn't hear that.
I just said, when you're sitting in an aircraft cockpit and everything green on the dash is green, it's good. So-
Oh, well, good. Good. Well, if nobody has any questions, that's all I had for the financial update. I did want to also give you just a short audit update verbally. We are behind my original schedule of being finished by now, but we had a few hiccups in the road along the way and had to reschedule with the auditors. So they will be on site the first week of December to finish up the audit. They already have many of the documents they've requested, and we're just working day by day with any new requests that they have. And then when they come on site, they'll do the interviews with certain staff members to ensure that no one has any suspicion of fraud and those kind of things that they normally do during an audit. And they should be able to finish everything up and get us the auditor's report and financial statements well before the 12/31 deadline. There is the caveat, though, they made sure and gave me the caveat that if there are delays on our ability to get them documents as they ask for them, then that could push them past the 12/31 date. So we're committed to staying on top of anything they ask for. And that's kind of the full update of where we're at the audit for now. So any questions about the audit?
Christina, I just might add for the board. So our first kind of deadline of get all of our paperwork to the auditors was essentially this Monday, and we beat that deadline with a Thursday of last week. So we're prioritizing this, and I'm grateful to Christina and Robbie's help on our finance team of making that happen, because I look forward to having a complete and on-time audit.
Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the September financial report.
Chair, I move approval of the financial report as presented dated September 31st, 2025.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the September financial report, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina, and
Yeah,
you get back to.
I'll stick around for a little bit longer just in case there's questions on the next item.
Evil green underplan seems to be working.
Yes, Chair Howard, members of the board, more just a logistical item. Christina had a suggestion I thought was good, and so I agreed with it, was to remove the environmental justice government to government details off of this sheet since it hadn't been updated since March, and that is a closed grant. I will say that we are knee deep in a internal audit of our TAG financial items, which has been a close collaborative effort with SWS, our nonprofit partner in Oak Ridge, implementing that. We're making good headway, and I think that we will be much better for the noting where in our internal audit we can have some fine tuning and some correcting. We believe at this point that we will be able to spend the entirety of that targeted airshed grant, the first one, to the point where we know that some of the invoices here in this month, we will have to mark where that starts to shift into the TAG 2 spending. And our due date for that closeout is the end of March of next year. I think from our end, I'm trying to target having all of that ready to go by the end of January. And from that, we will be shifting into our targeted airshed grant 2.0. An important key detail here is this grant is in effect through August 30th of next year. We do have a grant extension for a 1-year extension that's been submitted to the EPA, and that's a Region 10 item. So the Seattle office should be able to process that extension without needing to talk to Washington, DC about it. So that's positive in terms of them being able to meet that mark. No action has been taken on that since the government was shut down. Region 10 staff has been engaged and working on some degree with a very limited shoestring budget. I'm not sure where they're pulling that from, but grants is one of the items that Region 10 staff have been forbidden from working on until the government funding is restored. So now that that is moving again, I hope to see some progress on that extension request to the EPA at the January board meeting.
Any questions? I have a question. As far as the TAG 1 grant, will you try to do basically a postmortem on that as far as how it went and all that? And
Yeah.
maybe share that with the board.
Yes, that's our final report, which includes the financial components. There's a narrative report out of lessons learned, an item like that, to which we have a number of items that I think would be important to that, as well as then demonstrating what the actual emission reductions were from the grant. And that's a little bit of some math and calculation that is required in terms of our financial submittal. And with the board, I think would be appropriate as a full kind of walkthrough of what that report looks like.
Okay. So it'd be good for a future
Yeah.
agenda item when you're complete that. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Well, Christine, I think we're done with you for now. Thank you. All righty, moving on. Ellen, we're trying to make our meetings efficient. So
I love this. I
we're
love
going to
it.
schedule.
Amazing.
Wood heating season update.
Going, Heather. So I'll tee this up and then I will turn to Matt to give a bit of the presentation or to give the presentation. So this is an item that is our Homewood Heating program is essentially our wood stove regulatory program. And it's an important program that LRAPA has in meeting our federal standards or assuring that we're meeting our National Ambient Air Quality Federal Standard. And so this is a bit of an FYI to the board because it's topical, as well as just a deeper review of one of our programs. So you have more insight into some of what that work and how that is done. So once Heather clicks the play button, I will pass the mic to Matt, and I'll probably jump in a time or two if I want to add something. So.
Thank you, Travis. Good afternoon, everyone. Is there anyone at the table that uses a wood stove to heat their home? All right, we've got one. So I'll be pinging you, Alan, regularly to make sure and test your knowledge on our advisory status.
You got it.
But as many of you may be aware, we do have a Homewood heating program here. And if you'll go ahead and click to the next slide.
Maybe my clicker.
But just as a refresher, our airshed has many things that contribute to the air quality. As you know, there's cars, airplanes, from agricultural activities, fertilizers, to natural occurrences like volcanoes or wildfires. The thing that we are focused on for this particular or addition to our airshed specifically, as you can see, is that small home next to the barn, is the wood stove particulate. But one aspect that's not captured in this diagram here, if you'll go ahead and advance for me, is the importance that the weather and the atmospheric conditions play on our air quality, actually. And so, as many of you probably have experienced, if you've lived here for any amount of time, we get a lot of inversions in the wintertime. And the valleys are really perfect setup for it, is that essentially warm air, as we know, tends to be higher up. And when that warm air traps the cold air between, unfortunately, it also traps all of those pollutants near the ground, which when wood stoves are going, in addition to all the other regular activities in our community, you have that inversion occur where the air quality then is negatively impacted. Brian can probably speak volumes to how that happens in Oak Ridge. So anything that you'd like to add to that, Travis?
Yeah, I'll just say, this is a common just aspect of our environment. In the past, this phenomenon has created non-attainment with our federal standards. So Eugene for PM10 was in non-attainment. And so an outcome from that non-attainment in the past was we need a program that can work on where pollution is going into the air. The focus on wood stoves is appropriate because with industry sources, we have permits that are very clear and specific of here's how you're going to operate. So you're burning at the most efficient way that you can, but we don't go into individuals' homes with similar level of prescription of how they're operating. And so this instead is an approach of just noting when we have a meteorological circumstance where air is going to be stuck and it's going to get polluted over days, how we might be able to engage with the community so collectively we can avoid air quality being degraded.
And so if you're unfamiliar, we actually do have kind of a 3-colored tier system for advisories for folks who are using wood stoves in the communities it applies to. And green, much like Brian had shared earlier, that's a good sign. That means that we're happy with atmospheric conditions. We're good to go. One thing to keep in mind, there is an opacity limit that was set as part of the provisions of the Homewood heating. Eugene and Springfield is set actually fairly, they have a lot of latitude in what they can do. 40% would be, it's pretty high up there. Where Oak Ridge, where they were not in attainment and their airshed has a much more stringent opacity level of 20%.
And I'll just real quickly, Matt, just say, so opacity means if you're looking at smoke, how see-through is it? Is it more like a window or is it like a door? And if it's 40% opaque, that's the limit for Eugene Springfield.
And so the yellow advisory then is probably the one that gives the least consternation to put out there because it's a voluntary curtailment. So this whole program ultimately, because it's private homeowners with a source to heat their homes, it's a cooperative, right? We're trying to get folks to understand is that if you have the alternative heating options and you can utilize that instead of burning wood during a yellow advisory, that would be much appreciated because we're recognizing air quality is setting up in a way that it could get worse if we continue on. And so when we have to go to a red advisory, that's when we know full and well the air quality is now at a point that if we see additional pollutants and things like that come into it, it's just going to aggravate an already poor air quality airshed. Like the air quality is already degraded to an extent that it is probably unhealthy for sensitive groups or higher. But during a red advisory, and this is really important for any of you that have stakeholders that maybe come to you and are either upset or confused if there's a red advisory in your community, it does not mean that you cannot burn. Because I've had folks come up to me at public community gatherings where they're like, you know, my mother, who is like in their 90s, I remember that LRAPA came to her door and told her she couldn't burn. It was the only way to heat her house and it was really cold. And they were emotionally, you know, aggravated by what they believe to be the case, but I can assure you is that our agency does not approach this as you are not able to heat your home because it's a red advisory. It's just you need to be operating your stove at a very efficient rate, which means making sure you're using dry wood, making sure you have your dampers open, and preferably a smaller fire so that when someone were to look out of your chimney, it would be no visible emission.
Yeah, I think I want to just clarify too that our rules and regulations, which are home and heating is Title 31 or 13, one of the two, I have them backwards. Nowhere in it does it say you can't heat your home or you can't use your wood stove. It's all about the emissions. And so on a red day, visible emissions are prohibited. So that is the entry point to the conversation of, well, how can we improve your emissions so we're not seeing that smoke that comes out of it? And I think that that's a much healthier place to have a conversation as opposed to a just don't use your wood stove because we say so, which I think historically was a bit of the approach that was taken.
It's an exemption, isn't there? Somebody can
Sole
apply.
source.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so that, and that's the last bullet item there is advisory exemptions, is that residents who fall below the federal poverty levels can apply to our office to say, I would like to be able to operate my stove at a level that within the opacity levels for my community, because that's easier and they would use maybe less fuel that way, or at least be able to not have that concern of being feeling like that they would be somehow someone from LRAPA might come to their home. We had 27 of those issued last year. Many of those renew year after year. Heather does a wonderful job overseeing that program and making sure that everybody's seen to that applies. So any questions on that to this point?
The sole source, be your wood stove being the sole source of your heat, does that fall into those exemptions, or is that something we've done locally?
So that, if that's what you're doing in Oak Ridge, then that's what you're doing locally. Our current code or rules that is both in Eugene and Springfield said after 1996 that was no longer going to be allowed. As a reason to have an exemption was that was the sole source of heating. But we have had residents that I've talked to in the last 2 years who were somewhat, they would desire to maybe have that be an option. This one particular gentleman is a veteran, and he had just mentioned that he had purposely removed some of his ceiling electric heat, which he found to be very inefficient and not working well, and just installed a stove and felt that it was odd that he would not be allowed to apply for an exemption, being it was the only way to heat his home. And I told him I understood and agree with his logic there, is that it is the only way to heat his home, and why wouldn't he be able to? But currently, as it stands, that is not allowed in the Eugene or Springfield exemptions.
Just a quick observation, 27 permits issued out of a county of hundreds of thousands seems remarkably small. Is it historically been in the 20 some people annually to secure this or secure this permit? And it begs the question, is there a plan to expand that, or what's the benefit from doing it when there's just such an extraordinarily small percentage of people applying for said permit?
Yeah, well, I can start, Matt, is so it's not quite all of Lane County. It's only just the Eugene Springfield area where the exemption exists, because it's Eugene, Springfield, and Oak Ridge that have this program, a home heating program. It is income-based, and 27 is what we've had. And what that indicates is on a red day, who would we, if we had a complaint or we noticed that smoke was coming out of their chimney, who from a conversation we need to have, can we say no visible emissions is allowed, or you are on this list where you can have in Eugene Springfield 40% opacity or Oak Ridge 20% opacity. And I think, Heather, if you go to the next slide, this will kind of be helpful. This is a conversation that's only applicable on red home and heating days. And if you pull those up,
Yeah, go ahead.
so for Eugene, we issued one of those days last year. So in terms of how vital is it that we're assuring that every Eugene and Springfield resident is aware of this opportunity? I feel it becomes a conversation that is applicable when we're in that circumstance on a red day and we're having a conversation with someone about their wood stove smoke. That touch point allows us to understand, well, are you in this group where maybe an exemption would be helpful and appropriate, and let us connect you with that resource. And then that's where we have that contingent of ongoing people applying for.
That's incredibly helpful framing. Thank you. And just for clarification, it's largely complaint driven.
Yes.
Dylan?
Oh, Commissioner Lovell, you.
No, you go ahead. You're faster on the draw. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was curious and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but do y'all have data on like non-compliance, like how many people are reported as kind of not meeting the opacity limits in these programs? You know, like,
We could get that data.
yeah,
don't have it
I'm
ready
kind of
today.
interested to see like how, how effective are these rules at actually changing behavior, if it's just like kind of
Well,
regular.
there's a chart here in the director's report about complaints. So there were 51 complaints in 2025.
But Howard, I think to Dylan's question, a complaint does not mean that someone was not complying with opacity.
Right.
It could just be that the neighbor found their burning problematic, even if it was within, the opacity levels.
We don't have really any idea as to, when you issue a red advisory, what percentage of those that use wood to heat are complying with that. I mean,
It's very, just from a logistics standpoint, it's very challenging.
Yeah, it seems
to
like
try to-
I'm getting at, you
Like
just
hold
don't, you
this
just don't
slide
know.
up against the
You
smoke.
just don't know.
Swatch.
That is where, in all things, be it outdoor burning or whether it's a complaint on an industry source that's smelling a little weird, we do, in our staff of 17, try to account for the whole county and all the needs that are in there, but that is an important point of our complaint process, our community-driven complaints. That's why the button to file a complaint with us is like on our homepage. You can click it and find it right there, because it's that recognition that our limited resources need to find some effective use in these specific places. That is how we have been successful with our program, and it begins with the notification from the community that they would like some of our resources.
Yeah, public education is really the key to this. I mean, because you can't enforce, can't go, you're not gonna be driving around.
Early on in TAG 1, we actually got funded at Oak Ridge to have a smoke compliance officer, and it just wasn't effective. And eventually, the funding, they rightfully redirected the funding.
The amount of funding that was allocated was met, so.
I think, Brian, branding was kind of your thing. Maybe you should have rode in on a black horse or something in Oak Ridge. Maybe that was the problem.
I watched that show, Smoking.
Yeah. To Councilor Keating's point, there's about 162,000 households in the Metro Springfield Eugene area. So those 27 represent 1.6%. That helps out.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think, and these are great questions, and it's really important to kind of bear that in mind, because we have had instances where someone has in fact was fully compliant. We actually had a staff member, Colleen, went to their home to just check, because the number of complaints were so frequent that we were like, we assured the community member, we will go and look closer. The person there was renting. It was a sole source of functioning heat for the home, but their wood was seasoned, dry, in great shape. They were operating the stove correctly, and we made sure to get them an exemption, which they did, and it was put through. And really the issue laid more with the neighbor just not wanting that particular neighbor to burn wood to heat their home. And so it's just, those are kind of those pockets that happen. But in addition to that, when these rules were first laid out in the 90s, far more homes were using wood stoves to heat, right, than today. And many ductless heat pumps have been installed, and many other devices to better heat, and also upgrades in windows and insulation and things. So all of that collectively has really helped reduce the amount of activity in this space. And fortunately, EPA stoves continue to get more efficient, and those are required when you sell a home to be, upgraded. You can't leave the old stove in the home. That is supposed to be upgraded when they do that. So there's some things in place that are assisting this along. So if you go to the next slide for me. This to me is just kind of the ROI for you as stakeholders in the intergovernmental agreement. One, that complaint response that Travis spoke to. We spent well over 200 staff hours just on homewood complaint response. That doesn't include all the other work that may be included, but just to kind of responding to that. We work really hard with any of our intergovernmental agreement communities, so Springfield, Eugene, and Oak Ridge, is that if we know that, okay, we are probably going to have to do a red advisory, I prefer to get a hold of the folks that are at City Hall and whatnot and say, hey, we're going to have to put up a red advisory tomorrow. If people are going to be upset and get a hold of your staff and they're feeling ill-equipped to respond, please send them to us. We are more than ready to accept those and have those conversations. And part of that's predicated on the daily advisory forecast. So right now, with Travis's Jedi training to me as a meteorologist to a Padawan, he has trained me on the most basic level of meteorological like divining, I guess, is looking at those maps and models and trying to understand. Well, it truly is. Every single day, you have to look very closely as to what it is anticipating is to happen, but then be very careful to balance it out with what is really going on outside. And so with that is where we set those advisories and try to do that. And finally, enforcement, we are an education first agency. When we have someone who we don't have any record of any non-compliance, our first move isn't, hey, you're going to get cited, watch out. It's let's get them a letter, make sure they understand what the rules are. If they have questions, invite them to get a hold of us and start at that. If they were to have numerous times that they were observed to be exceeding capacity, and especially if they were burning prohibited materials like garbage and plastics, and they were made known that that is not allowed and they continue to do so, that would be the one time where we would do enforcement. Any fees that were collected from that action would then not go to our agency, but would go to Lane County General Fund. So that is kind of for myself, as I believe for those communities that are in our intergovernmental agreement who have this in their code and rules, and that this is something that needs to happen, we've been given the authority to do all of this work on behalf of your community to help protect the airshed. So
I'll just add one, that my training of Matt has been like, this is a map that I look at and you should look at this map too. And there's the pool, go swim in it a little bit. And I'll also mention that this program is in the city of Springfield, in the city of Eugene, and in Oak Ridge's code, and it's also in Lane County code as well. Our titles are also a backup of it. And this stems from back when there was non-attainment. LRAPA's role with partners at the time was saying, let's figure out strategies to bring us into attainment. The solution was a program. The cities adopted items into their code. They passed that enforcement authority to LRAPA, and that is the torch we've been carrying since.
Can I just ask briefly, when was Eugene and Springfield out of attainment?
We are getting, I think we're in our second 10-year maintenance plan. So when you are in non-attainment, you go into what's considered maintenance, and there's two 10-year plans that you have to write or draft. We're in our fourth year of our second maintenance plan. Lance, do you have any insight?
The maintenance plan wasn't actually presented until quite a ways after we were out of non-attainment. Like, we haven't been over the PM10 standard since 1986 or 87.
Oh, well. And then Oak Ridge was like in the late 2010s was still.
They were moved into non-attainment in 2016, and then was published in the Code of Federal Register late 2022 for being into maintenance. And so now Oak Ridge is in two 10-year maintenance cycles.
Same status as you did.
Yeah, but for Oak Ridge, it's PM10 and PM25, and for the city of Eugene, Springfield Airshed, it's just PM10.
Thank you.
And if I may, I don't want to call Lance out, but we were visiting the other day about just the work we do here and how you really want to make a difference. And Lance has been here long enough to be here for the entirety of the TAG program. And he was reflecting, and I agreed, is Oak Ridge is a great example of when there's intentionality behind a program and you have the resources to do it, to see that airshed, the air quality, and the day-to-day lived experience for those residents have definitively been improved because of this work. And so I think it's a great example of how, you know, with some of the things that we're doing in great partnership with the folks at SWS, we can in fact help drive our mission of ensuring clean air for Lane County residents. And I think Oak Ridge has the residents and the people there have been really good in being partners to see that through. And so it just, with Eugene's second maintenance plan, I mean, we are moving the needle in the right direction. So that's beneficial.
Oak Ridge had less red days called last year than the Eugene Springfield area because they're now kind of getting ahead of the metro area on where this need is at. So.
And I'll tell you, the dry firewood program is really to me, was one of the most essential things to get there, because people were just burning wet wood and it just didn't work. It didn't work out that way. So, yeah.
Well, there's good news for the weather yogi and the weather Padawan. Lane County getting really close to having a Southern Valley weather radar eye because we're so dependent on
Yes.
That's in Portland. We don't have any real accurate data at this end of the valley.
That would be so awesome.
So that is, that's getting very quite close to being a reality. So that would help us out a lot too.
I'm glad to hear that.
As my wife is a former National Weather Service radar software, Congress has grossly underfunded National Weather Service for many, many years.
Somehow Adams has found a hole. So
Matt, I was looking at our ordinance and it refers to a stage 1 and the stage 2 bred. Is that still in the?
They exist there, but we functionally don't operate at that level right now. It's just, it becomes confusing to folks, so
I get
it's
it,
easier to say, yeah, we're at red.
I think the easiest way that I kind of slice it is, well, for one, the program only runs October 1st through May 31st with our daily publication of the advisory. And I see yellow as a voluntary step people can take because we recognize that the meteorological environment is one where we could see an air quality issue. And then red days is where we are directly anticipating we will see an issue or we're already observing an impact on air quality.
Thank you.
Yeah, that concludes the presentation then, unless there were other questions.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Am I allowed to ask a question? So how do you advise homeowners about gauging opacity?
Technique for it.
Do you like recommend smoke school to them or? I'm just curious, because it's a tricky thing to gauge. I was just curious if you guys kind of give some advice or recommendations around that.
I have not suggested smoke school in my conversations, but we do have on our website actual pictures, which is, it's still challenging, that show the opacity 20%, 40%, and then a level exceeding that. But I do think it is challenging because it's a very subjective thing if you're not trained professionally to do so.
And then I would say, Kelly, to that is we don't really take enforcement on smoke opacity from wood stoves. It really is like we recognize that you were burning prohibited in the wood stove, or through our engagement, it seems like there's just gross negligence in us trying to have you see progress on this. But getting people to a point where they're reflecting on how dense is that smoke coming out of my wood stove and how can I make it better? That's like the target to get there with people. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll move on to director's report.
Can I just briefly say, this kind of stuff is so helpful for me to just kind of better familiarize myself with the various programs that the agency is undertaking. So please, if there's ever opportunities to talk about more of the programs we have, I would really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that's kind of when I say, what would the board like us to give a presentation on? In the delegating, I was talking a little bit earlier, this was a presentation Matt put together as opposed to me. But I find value in that. Similar, like, hey, I heard that the city of Eugene is working on some code changes. How does that connect to LRAPA? You know, that's another awesome like opportunity for us to, because we're aware of that and we can, you know, engage and talk on that. So Chair Howard, members of the board, for the director's report, as normal in that executive summary. Before we dive into that, I do want to just make mention, because this was written before I had a chance to update it, for a burn that took place in the middle of Eugene last week or a week and a half ago at Radius Recycling. It was in the news. I'm not sure if the board was as familiar with that. So just that is not reflected in kind of operational items, but that is a thing that took place that we're aware of, and we are in connection with the fire folks as well as Radius Recycling on doing our information gathering so we know what our best approach should be. So I just want to start with that. Say that at this point, I would say that the wildfire season has closed and we are now fully into the Homewood heating season. As we shared out, our air quality has remained in the moderate all month long for the month of October. Outdoor burning was delayed to October 15th from the start of October 31st, and then subsequently closed on October 31st, the end of the month. We continue to be engaged with outreach. Lane Community College had a prescribed fire management class that Matt gave a presentation to on our outdoor burning program, as well as our issuing permits for prescribed burn and otherwise, and how that interacts with organizations like the Oregon Department of Forestry. We did hire I'm not going to pull her out right now. I like to bring new staff in to say hello to the board. So maybe in January we'll get her. But we did hire a new environmental engineer, environmental specialist one. Her name is Sky. She comes from Alaska, where she worked in their monitoring department for the state government. And I think she'll be really helpful in some of our source testing and other permit writing aspects. But beyond that, we're holding on filling our 2 open vacant FTEs due to some of the funding uncertainty. I would much rather be in a cautionary approach at this place versus otherwise. So we're holding on refilling those positions. In October, DEQ held their Fall Air Quality Forum, which is an annual item they do where DEQ gets together all the air quality folks and they put together an agenda of items and resources and training. LRAPA, seen by DEQ, and I think for us ourselves, we, in a weird way, not weird way, but in a helpful way, we're almost a division of DEQ just for Lane County. And so we get to be included and participatory on those training and other aspects that DEQ did. So our operations folks, a good contingent of them went there. That conflicted with PNWIS, which is a Air and Waste Management Pacific Northwest annual conference, but I participated there and joined on a panelist of some local and state air directors. LINFO, which is our internal database. We're continuing to make progress since LCOG's developer retired. At the moment, this is similar to what we shared with the board last month. We're getting our access on GitHub so we can bring on our own contractor as a developer who can more directly work on improvements to our internal database. Backlog remains at a 7% backlog for between our Title Vs and our ACDP. I shared with this board last month, but I think it's something that we can be proud of, is Short Mountain Landfill is the first landfill in the state of Oregon to use drone monitoring for regulatory compliance demonstrations. Ashley Dearden's the permit writer here who worked on that, who Jim mentioned earlier. DEQ, the feedback I've heard is, this is awesome, and we will do lots of borrowing from the language that's used here in this permit. So I'm grateful for that. And as Christina shared, on a financial position for the year with funding that's been adopted, we remain in a strong position, but looking on the horizon for changes on the federal state funding dynamic, as well as from a economic viability and a number of sources that are open for business in the county.
Yeah, I know we're getting towards Howard's quitting time, but I'll make a couple of comments.
I know, I already worked 80 hours this week.
I wanted to thank Matt for his community engagement. I think it's really important, outward facing to the community, that you get out there, and it's apparent from your report that he's been very busy.
Yeah.
And second question I have for you, Travis, was I very much appreciate the metrics on the strategic plan that you're delivering here. But I wanted to ask you, is it too cumbersome to compile that stuff, or does it focus your thoughts as you start to compile that stuff?
In what's in here, like in the director's report,
Yeah.
I have staff assembles the director's report and then I read through it to make sure I understand. I have found some questions that have come out of me reviewing it that has led to some helpful conversations. So I appreciate it from that perspective. And then what is written is the executive aspect of myself. I see this as a great way to, when I look back at a year and I reflect on, well, what have been all the things that we've been up to? I see this as a real good reference point. And so there's value in it of that beyond just presenting it to the board and the public.
Thank you.
It's not written by ChatGPT.
Well, to be transparent.
Keep your powder dry, they say. Keep your powder dry.
The executive highlight, so my process is everybody assembles the director's report. I give the director's report to Claude and I say, here's some things I would like to focus on that I think are important. And out comes a first draft. And I do read, fine tune and tweak that first draft, and every word that's in there, I still speak to with an I statement, as these are the words that I would say and I would write. But Claude saved me a lot of time in putting it together.
Any questions? Director's report? Okay, well, that concludes our agenda. As you know, we do not meet in December unless there's some critical thing that we need to meet on, but I'll anticipate that being the case. So is there any other further business comments or anything? Well, if not, stand adjourned. enjoy your
Well,
upcoming
Jim,
holidays.
Before we do, I see Jim's back. Welcome back. Just when you think you're out. Thank you for your service, Jim.
Thank you, everyone.
And again, have great holidays coming up. Be safe, and we will be in January. And there'll probably be some interim communications before then. Thanks, everyone.